What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I want to talk about cars. Well, I also want to talk about Gen Con, and I want to talk about the Transformers trading card game. Really, I want to talk about how cars wrecked Gen Con. Now, look, there are two things that need to be made super clear at the beginning of this video. Firstly, we're talking about cars because there were two cars decks in the final. Of course, there were plenty of other non-car decks, and of course, there were plenty of non-car decks that did very well at Gen Con. I'm just focusing on the fact that two cars decks made the final when that was not what we'd been seeing previously. Secondly, Transformers doesn't really have a metagame, not like that. We had PAX Unplugged last year, which was dominated by double primes. That is to say, the combination of Optimus Prime, Battlefield Legend, and Nemesis Prime. Then we had Origins a few weeks ago that was dominated by Optimus Prime, but wider builds with stuff like Flame War and Hot Rod. And then we've had Gen Con. So look, there really isn't much of a metagame. We've had 3 tournaments. There have been 3 proper big Transformers TCG tournaments, because locals always have their own metagame. If you look at any other trading card game, you can't just go, well, us guys down in Dallas play this, that's the national metagame. No. What happens is you have all your little local metagames, and then you have a whole bunch of tournaments that bring those local metagames together and decide a national and an international metagame. That's not really the case we've had with Transformers so far, because we've literally had 3 tournaments that have reacted to each other. And expect to see this at the European tournament in London in September, and expect to see it at PAX Unplugged in Texas in December. Don't read too much into any of these tournaments. Don't overreact. We have had 3 decent-sized Transformers tournaments. That does not a metagame make. But we have seen a success of cars, and let's start off talking about Cliffjumper. Because Cliffjumper was in both of the decks that made the final. Now, that doesn't mean that they were only there because of Cliffjumper. And the winner, Kevin, has come out and said, no, it wasn't just a Cliffjumper deck. Cliffjumper was just in it. And the controversy here is that Cliffjumper was one of the exclusive cards in the San Diego Comic-Con pack 2018. And it is an exceedingly expensive card at this point. It's hard to get hold of. Is the sky falling? Is Cliffjumper the only card with which you can win? No! There were plenty of non-Cliffjumper decks that did well at Gen Con. And Cliffjumper didn't have a great showing at either PAX Unplugged last year or Origins this year. And that doesn't mean no one played Cliffjumper. It means it didn't crush. Cliffjumper's a good card, but it's not the only good card. Remember, let's not be overreacting. Now, Cliffjumper is an 8-star character with 5 attack, 12 health, and 2 defense. Given that the average back in Wave 1 was 8 stars with 4 attack, 12 health, 2 defense, it has got objectively good stats. And it's got pretty good skills. In bot mode, it gets +1 attack for each car in your KO area. And when you're in alt mode, when you flip one of your other cars to bot mode, you draw a card. Now, that's pretty gosh darned awesome, because with the same stats in either mode, you can leave it in alt mode and just take advantage of the fact that your other cars can be flipping into bot mode and drawing cars. You get a card advantage, that's good. Or you can be attacking in bot mode, getting +1 attack for each car in your KO area. Although if there's no cars in your KO area, might as well be in alt mode, unless of course you're playing cards like Armed Hovercraft to try and take advantage of the fact that you're a ranged character. But if you're not playing anything range specific, might as well stay in alt mode until at least one car has been KO'd. Cool. So this is good, but it's not the absolute be-all and end-all. So if we start off with the deck that came in second, it was Cliffjumper, Wheeljack, and Lionizer. So you had one other car being played, but it was an absolute doozy. Now, Wheeljack is a 9-star character, which is actually quite expensive for cars. And the stats are alright. 4 or 5 attack, 13 health, 1 or 2 defense. It's pretty good. Not over the top amazing, but pretty good. But in alt mode, when you upgrade one of your cars, you draw a card and then scrap a card from your hand. It doesn't give you more cards, but it lets you cycle through the cards in your hand and the cards in your deck more quickly. And now all of a sudden you're drawing cards with Cliffjumper, and you're refreshing your hand with Wheeljack. That gives you a faster, more consistent deck than the average. Then, if you've got a weapon in your scrap pile, you get bold free. Now, if you're playing with Wheeljack and Lionizer, you are basically saying, I'm going full bold, I'm going hyper aggressive. Now, Lionizer might not be a car, but what Lionizer is a Battle Master with 0 attack and bold 4. Yeah, that's going to be flipping a lot of extra cards. Not only that, when Lionizer gets KO'd, you give one of your other characters bold 4 and incidentally plan 1. So let's say Lionizer gets KO'd and gets put on Wheeljack, and you can, if you so wish, always go ahead and just play Peace Through Tyranny, which has double orange, which you're going to want to play anyway in a hyper-aggressive deck. But it lets you KO one of your characters with 6 stars or more, which Lionizer is. And then when you KO Lionizer, you get to attach RS Fire Steel Saber to one of your characters. Oh yeah, and incidentally, this also gives you an extra turn, which is pretty gosh darn good. Although remember the new ruling, extra turns cannot stack. So the turn you play Peace Through Tyranny, you can KO Lionizer, and all of a sudden RS Fire Steel Saber's on the board, and oh look, Wheeljack now has bold 7. Bold 7 is absolutely absurd. So the second place deck, you're sitting there with 2 cars, lots of bold, and a bunch of draw power. Incidentally, this is not intended to be a deck where we're analysing the 2 winning lists. I might do that later. This is just a video about cars generally and why cars are pretty gosh darn good. If we look at Kevin's winning deck, we see we've got Cliffjumper with Red Alert, Prowl, and RC. And let's start with the most interesting thing about this list. It's got starter deck Red Alert. We have had 3 decent-sized Transformers TCG tournaments, and one of them's been won by starter deck Red Alert. We've all conceded at some point or another that the starter deck Optimus Prime and the starter deck Bumblebee are all right. I've not really heard anyone talking about starter deck Red Alert. I adore this. So why are we playing starter deck Red Alert? Well, it's a 6 cost with attack of 3 or 5. That's it. It's a 6 cost with an attack of 5. That's very high. Bearing in mind the average is an 8 cost with an attack of 4. If you can lower the cost by 2 and the attack by 1, you're golden. No, it doesn't have great defense and the health is just fine. And it doesn't have any skills. But if you're playing an aggro deck, this is fine. And here's the thing, right? If your opponent's going after Red Alert, they're not going after Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper doesn't mind your other cards getting KO'd because that boosts its attack. If your opponent's going after Red Alert, they're not going after your better character. So the low defense and low health becomes way less important, and you get to sit there and rock with a 5 attack character. That's kind of cool, ladies and gentlemen. That's kind of cool. We then see Prowl, who's always been one of my favourites, another 6 cost car. And, I mean, the stats here are fine. Attack of 3 or 4, health of 9, defense of 2. It's a 6-star character, so we're not expecting miracles. And what we see is a couple of skills that really help cars. In bot mode, when one of your cars is KO'd, you repair 3 damage from one of your other characters, which means that if Red Alert gets KO'd, you can heal 3 damage from Cliffjumper while giving him +1 attack. That's good. And then in alt mode, when you flip to it, each of your cars gets bold 2 until end of turn. So once again, we're working on a fairly aggressive build. And then we see RC here as well. Now, RC isn't a car, but you've still got 3 cars down there. It's, you know, you're doing all right. RC is a bike, and it is a 5-star character. And the stats are pretty low because it's a 5-star character. But in bot mode, you got Pierce equal to your attack. So if you're going for a fairly aggressive, bold build anyway, why not go for someone who, the more attack you get, the more pierce you get, and you can go do a whole bunch of damage? That sounds pretty good to me. And then in ult mode, when you flip to it, you get to repair 1 damage from each of your characters. So you've got another little bit of healing there. Both RC and Prowl can provide a little bit of healing. And then, of course, you got the real tricks of the cars, and that is turbo boosters and start your engines. And this is the thing for me that has always really stood out about cars to make them good. Turbo boosters is an upgrade, and it gives you +1 attack, and it's got an orange pip, so good for aggressive builds. It is a utility that can only be put on cars, and when you put it on a character, you untap them. So you're playing a 3 or 4 wide cars deck, but it turns into so much more than that, because you got turbo boosters, then you build in start your engines, flip each of your characters from bot mode to car mode, then untap one of your cars. So you've got 6 untapping cards here, which means that you're not really playing a 3 or 4 wide deck, it's more than that, because you're constantly untapping your characters and essentially getting extra turns, or at the very least, extra attacks. And we're good with this, ladies and gentlemen. This is cool. Also, quick side note, start your engines. It flips all your characters into car mode, and Cliffjumper in car mode. When you flip a car to bot mode, you draw a card. So start your engines really helps you with drawing in that regard. There's a lot of potential with cars. Is it the best deck? I don't know. It is far too early. Yes, the game is a year old, or 11 months, well, really just over 10, but we've not had enough big tournaments to really make that decision. The metagame has changed quite dramatically every time we've had a big tournament. There's only been 3 of them. Is Cliffjumper some huge, unassailable character? No! All of these card decks, and especially the 2 we saw at Gen Con, they played Cliffjumper, but they had plenty of other tricks outside of that. Cars are good. Cars have a lot of advantages. Cars have a lot of very good cards, but I don't think it's sky is falling down time just yet. As for should you run out and grab yourself a Cliffjumper? If you want one. But I would say that unless Cliffjumper keeps crushing the meta, which I don't think it's going to, this is the most expensive Cliffjumper will ever be. I'd recommend holding off for a little while, but that's just me. Don't take that as proper advice. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Cars are good. Make of that what you will. And tell me what you make of it in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about Transformers and any other game that takes my fancy. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.